And I thank you so much for being with us inside Brunch this morning. It's 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. We're going to have the pleasure this morning of welcome the president of the Police Social and Welfare Association. He is Inspector Michael Seals. Inspector, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
As I did, I had you on our morning show, and I did there, but I will do now. Congratulations on being exonerated of the charge of sedition, which stood against you. A very serious charge that was dismissed. You were exonerated of that. In addition to being exonerated, you were celebrating, but asking that a couple of things be done to correct what you suffered as a consequence of being suspended from the service. Tell our listeners what the judgment actually said and where things stand with you being reinstated and getting the back money, and what amount of back money are we talking about?
What came out of the judgment is that the magistrate would have ruled on a no case submission. And because of that, what the magistrate would have pointed to was the issue of no identifiable person in the statement made to that would have suggested that the statement was generating a disaffection to that group of persons. So as a consequence of that no identity was made, that the magistrate would have came down on that side and upheld the no case submission by my attorney, Ms. Pamela Elder, counsel, and Mr. Owen Hines, who was instructed her.
In no case submission, let me just go back a minute, Inspector Seal, just to make our listeners, those who are uninitiated or may not have known about what we're talking about. This was during a time of negotiations. It is reported, it is alleged, you said that the situation is being provoked, that is the police service, being provoked to lead those governing to declare a state of emergency, I believe. Did I accurately surmise that?
To some extent.
Please put it clearly, just so our listeners are very clear.
I think what the statement itself is not a statement I'm going to repeat, obviously.
Okay.
And then what has happened is that based on how the magistrate would have analyzed the statement, was really to say that she found no sedition. She didn't find that the statement was seditious, or it had a seditious intent.
Gotcha.
Because of the fact there's no connection to, based on the law would require that you identify a group of persons, more particularly that group or class of persons you identified. Your statement must cause disaffection towards those persons, and that is really where the analysis would have lied. And as a consequence of that, that's the decision that arose out of the ruling from the magistrate.
And thank goodness you saw Rennie Bishop early enough to not repeat that statement and have to go and get another ruling somewhere. All right. So the important thing is that a no-case submission was accepted. Now, you were suspended for a period, what was it, 2 years?
Yes, just over 2 years.
Just over 2 years. You were asking for reinstatement, immediate reinstatement, and compensation for the loss of some part of your wages. Explain that, and explain why the police commissioner is saying this will take some time, the acting commissioner.
Well, let me just start with the part that he's saying it's going to take some time. What normally is the requirement is that it puts the Director of Public Prosecution, who always gives the advice if to prosecute public officers, and in this case I fall as a public officer, and he would have given that direction to prosecute. More importantly, because the matter has been completed and it's a matter that can go to the High Court, what he can actually do is now indict me straight to the High Court, having gone to a judge in chamber who will now review the evidence and determine whether there is enough evidence to support a case against me and bypass the whole process of the preliminary inquiry with the magistrate. So that's where that is at. That normally is a period of time. I'm not too sure of the period. Some have suggested 14 days, some have suggested 20 days. I'm not too sure. And I think that is the time the commissioner is speaking about. So he has to wait until that time is elapsed. Then he can move to the point of reinstatement. With reinstatement comes the whole question of compensation that I would have lost over the 2-year period, given my portfolio. So as a consequence of that, I am just waiting. I think that period should come to end about mid-September, God's willing, and I think from that, at that occasion, everything should be fine.
Michael Seeds, who's the president of the Police Service Social and Welfare Association, my guest, exonerated on the sedition charge, no case submission by his attorneys. That was accepted, and now he's looking to continue his life. That did not in any way interfere with your membership electing you as president of the Police Social Welfare Association, which is a good thing. There are a number of challenges that fall under your association right now, primarily, or at least in the public focus right now, is the question of the SRP and the photos. My general feeling, I have expressed many times, is that she is a victim twice over, because something was done in private quarters and leaked, and I believe the true culprit in this is the leaker. You said that you do not see what she has done warranting her dismissal, but you did say it has caused irreparable damage to the TTPS image. Reconcile the irreparable damage and the need not to fire her. To me, I'm a little lost.
Well, let me just make it abundantly clear. The issue of what had been done doesn't even fall within our disciplinary code of conduct in terms of wearing the uniform. More importantly, they would have spelled out reasons, and those reasons are not sufficient and make the hurdle to discreditable conduct. And so is the case for her in this situation. She didn't make the hurdle for discreditable conduct, but it does not require that the harsh penalty of dismissal should be used because of the circumstances in that it only became public when a third party decided to circulate. And because that third party had decided to circulate, it did not mean, for all intents and purposes, that she is actually culpable for the circulation. What she's culpable for is the way she would have presented herself in the photograph. And there may be a lot of extenuating circumstances that do not lend to her doing the act deliberately. And that's really where that is and where you have to go to in terms of determining whether or not she should be dismissed or not.
You see, you are in a very unique position. The voice you're hearing is that of Michael Seals. You're in a very unique position here because I take it that you concur with me that she is a victim. Do you concur with that?
Well, I'm certainly sure that she's a victim based on the circulation of the picture.
Now,
I think that what on the circumstances that has come to our attention, it would seem to suggest that it was a malicious act on the part of another person.
And that's where it's difficult for me, because to me, I don't see any gray area here. I see gray area if, in fact, she was wearing the uniform in a public space. She was not in a public space when the act happened. So as far as I am concerned, this is a betrayal of trust. This is making a private matter a public one. And I don't see she as the one disgracing the uniform. The person who leaked the pictures is what led to that. That is my position. Am I misunderstanding something here? Are you at variance with that?
That is also the interpretation that has come to the fore with us, because more importantly too is that even when you look at the different codes of conduct under what we call Standard Order 6 in terms of policemen being on duty or in uniform, it speaks of most of the offences identifiable in a public space. Yes. Unfortunately, this is not the circumstances. So again, it's left to be seen how the commissioner progressed not only with the investigation, but also at the end in terms of if there are charges brought against her, if not the charges brought against her, then the question of when the charges are brought against her, how do we now panel that decision? And I think there has been a lot of persons who have volunteered, actually, and I mean, when I say persons, I'm talking about attorneys who have volunteered to do her case free of charge to the association. Mm-hmm. So that speaks and augurs well for us.
I would like anybody to take this up, because on a couple of things happening here. One is the SRP said that it is reported that she's in danger of losing her place because her landlord is hostile towards her, wanting to have her out. Two, she is in the first trimester of her pregnancy, it is reported. Three, her life is now exposed. She has been shamed publicly. And I think to now go and take the victim and punish her even further, the Police Service Social and Welfare Association would have to stand up for her to ensure that she's not a victim twice.
But I think we have already begun that, because part of what has happened, because of her employment status and her employment status being one that if you go on suspension, you immediately lose all your salary. That's also her situation. She is, in fact, being punished already. So because the commissioner stopped her from working, she immediately has a total loss of salary because her salary is based on a pre-existing condition that she must work hours in order to be compensated. And once she doesn't work the hours, there's no compensation for her. So she's at that point, and it's a little troubling for us. And we have made the overture by appealing to the commissioner to reconsider. And even if he doesn't reconsider in the alternate, he does speed up the process to get that matter to some conclusion as quickly as possible.
The people who are responsible for protecting us will understand cyberbullying, and if this is not cyberbullying, I don't know what is.
Well, I think it's the investigation with direct that, and I think because it has come into the public domain, it is a perfect case for cyberbullying. More importantly, it's not just the investigation does not just surround the young lady alone. It must surround all the persons who would have played an instrumental part and really get to the truth of what is happening, and then we sift out who should be culpable in this regard.
I like the way you said that, because that's exactly what I'm hearing, rumbling. We cannot repeat rumblings, but some of the rumblings I hear, a lot of heads may roll in this, because this may not be just isolated to one area. In conclusion, Michael Seals, who is the president of the Police Service Social and Welfare Association, my question on the question of body cams. There was initially a time for it to be rolled out. There was some objection coming from the association because they were not consulted. You were, in fact, consulted. The body cam trial is on right now. I see this as a plus, as your organization articulated before. Are you still of that belief?
Yes, I am of that belief. I was a strong advocate for the use of body cam because of how footage is normally captured by persons in society. You would only get that view of what the end result of the police action, but we want to see the initial interaction from where it began to that. And I think the court of public opinion will differ when they get that. So it's important now that the policemen no longer can say they're not getting an objective and unbiased approach to the recordings. They too now will lend themselves to it. I can also say it has also contributed to that change in the behavior and approach to some of the officers, because they know there's total coverage every time they interact with someone, so that changes behavior. Even the persons who are the civilian population they are interacting with, they too have changed their behavior. They're actually curbing some of the hostility and aggression on both accounts, both the police officer and both the civilians. So you have a more professional approach and a more cordial approach in reciprocation by the member of public, and that is a welcome sign for us. What we want to do is hope that the cameras is not just a pilot project, it permeates through the police service as a necessary part of our item of tools for our job.
I said my final question. By the way, Nicole Dyer Griffith is standing by because that's going to be a major part of our conversation this morning. I said that my final, it should have been my penultimate question. Here comes the last one. In the case where a police officer turns off, once this becomes operational across the board out of the pilot phase, where a police officer turns off his body cam, as we have seen happen in a number of jurisdictions in the United States, how severe should that penalty be where a police officer deliberately turns off his body cam?
Well, our interpretation is twofold, because yes, they can go to the point where you say it's, for example, it's a disciplinary issue. But I've been in constant dialogue with the commissioner and saying, listen, if a policeman deliberately turns off his camera and does something nefarious, I am quite satisfied in law, and I think we will take our guidance from the DDP, but I am quite satisfied in law from my position that it amounts to perverting the course of justice, because you are embarking on a course of conduct that is deliberate to change the events or the capturing of events to your benefit. And once I'm satisfied that is what you're doing, I'm certain that should be the reasonable outcome in terms of it being a criminal charge.
President Michael Seals, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. Hope that you and your family have a very wonderful Sunday.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much.